could have gone smoother. But welcome back to Wildly Opinionated, your source for random wildlife discussion. I'm your host, Bonner Watson, and sorry for the change of scenery. I had a video posted, or a video recorded in the studio I had been using with the light board and everything, just like my other three, and somehow the file got corrupt or deleted or something off of my flash drive, the local drive I recorded it on, my laptop, and the video editing software I had uploaded it to. It got deleted off of all of those. So I am just going to go ahead and do a quick video, if my dog will stop barking, quick video doing this tag team division breakdown just so you can have all four of them, so you can meet all the contestants for the first round of the 2019 March Mammal Madness. Go ahead and follow them at 2019 MMM Let's Go on Twitter. You can also check out their Facebook page. So follow the hashtag 2019 MMM. Make sure it's 2019 MMM and not MMM 2019. Those are two different ones, and yeah, you want the first one, the 2019 MMM. Also follow us at wildly_podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow my personal at thebonnerlade, BONNERLADE on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find us on Facebook if you search the Wildly Opinionated Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and our host website, SoundCloud. But anyway, let's go ahead and break down the tag team bracket, or tag team division of the round one bracket March Mammal Madness. I can say a lot of words, but you know what I'm talking about. This is a really cool division, which is why I wanted to go ahead and get this video out, even though it's, like I said, not my usual setup. Because it's not just singular animals, it's two or more. I think the max we have is 3 working together as a unit in each contestant bracket. So that's pretty cool. And they have symbiotic relationships, which basically just means they work together, or their life processes are intertwined for either mutualism, commensalism, or parasitism. The mutualism is where party A and party B both benefit. Commensalism is where party A may benefit and party B has a neutral effect. Parasitism would be party A benefits, which is the parasite, and party B has a negative effect, which would be the host that is being parasitized upon. From what I could understand and what I researched on these contestants here, they're mostly mutualism type of relationships. Some of them you could argue are commensalism. Maybe one or two you could argue is a parasitic type thing. But I think for the most part we're dealing with mutualism here. So let's go ahead and break this down real quick. The first battle, the number 1 seed zebra and oxpecker versus the number 16 seed batfly and gamma proteobacteria. Now the zebra and oxpecker thing that you see, it's pretty common that you can see across Africa on like rhinos and zebras and Cape buffalo and stuff like that. You have these oxpecker birds come down and they stand on top of these animals, these big large mammals, African megafauna, and they eat the parasites and the bugs and stuff that are getting on these animals, you know, the flies and ticks and things like that. So the birds are getting a free meal out of it and kind of a safe place to sit around. And in addition, the zebra gets clean skin, they don't have parasites, they don't have ticks, and also an early alarm system, because if these birds get freaked out or they see something like predator, they'll fly up and make an alarm, which gives that zebra just an extra alarm system, another safeguard against predation or just anything that could be dangerous in general. The batfly is a hematophage, so which means they eat blood, just specifically off of bats, hence the name batfly. Now this relationship is something that I had a hard time studying. I couldn't find really a definitive answer on this without combing through a ton of different papers, and I couldn't find what I was looking for specifically on this. But from what I understand, basically the batfly doesn't have a very nutritionally rich diet. You know, if you're just drinking blood as your only source of nutrition, they're not really getting everything out of it that they could be, or they're not getting the nutrition that they need 100%. So that's where this bacteria comes in, where they get a place to live on the batfly. From what I understand, they kind of supplement the diet of that batfly through some way and give them some of that extra nutrition that they need. So our next battle, and I'm not picking winners on this, we're just going to go ahead and introduce all the contestants and then fly through this. The next battle is the 8-seeded aardvark and aardvark cucumber, or aardvark pumpkin, if you want to call it that, and the 9-seeded Geldes monkey, saddleback tamarin, and white-lipped tamarin, or mustache tamarin. Now, Geldes is G-O-E-L-D-I''S. It could be pronounced Goldies or something. I couldn't find that. So I'm going to say Geldes. Whatever. So, the situation with the aardvark and aardvark cucumber Aardvark cucumbers is a fruit that fruits underground, and so basically they need the aardvark to come out and dig it up and eat it so it can redistribute the seeds and bury them later on so they can grow again. Now, what the aardvark gets out of this is these aardvark cucumbers are they have a lot of water in them. They have a high water content. So these aardvarks can get moisture and water out of that, and so they don't necessarily have to find as significant of a water source for their water needs. And the aardvark cucumber gets to reproduce and move on and is seeded and buried by other things. Now, the monkey trifecta, as I'm calling it, from what I understand, the Gilts monkey is smaller than these tamarins, and so it gets a little bit of protection from those guys and is able to forage on higher canopy levels in the forest, and they all just kind of work together as a protective unit, and they forage more efficiently when they work together. Our next battle is the 5-seeded crab and sea turtle versus the 12-seeded clownfish and sea anemone. Anyway, the crab and sea turtle, this is one that I could argue is commensalism and not mutualism, but like I said, I'm not an expert. If you are an expert on any of these that I say I'm not sure of, I would love if you could reach out and give me some information and get a better explanation on this. But if not, whatever, I'm doing my best. So, but basically, from what I understand, the crabs live in the supracaudal, Columbus crabs live in the supracaudal region of the turtle, which is in between its shell and its tail, so kind of like this undershell region of the butt area of the turtle. And I don't know if the turtle gets anything from this. Maybe they clean the skin, keep it, some parasites or mites or something like that off of it. But basically, the crab gets a place to live and hitchhike rides. And a cool thing about this is not necessarily the size of the turtle, but the size of this supracaudal region can determine how many crabs live there, obviously, which subsequently can determine whether they exhibit monogamy or polygamy, which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, the clownfish and sea anemone, we know this if you've seen Finding Nemo. Don't let Disney teach you science, but they did a decent job as far as that little relationship goes, where the clownfish gains a place to stay, and they have an immunity to the poison sting of the sea anemone's arms. So they get a kind of a safe place to stay, free of predators, and they get some extra food from the scraps of what the anemone eats. Now, the anemone the clownfish cleans it, and it might scare away some predators, and in addition, the anemone can eat and get some nutrients from the clownfish's wastes and excrement and stuff like that. Our next battle is the 4-seeded cleaner wrasse fish and moray eel versus the 13-seeded fire coral and algae. The moray eel and wrasse, they do cleaning stations, these wrassi do, where there's these tiny fish, they go into the mouths and the faces of these moray eels and they clean off any type of parasite or something that would infect the flesh and blood and skin of these moray eels. And they don't usually get enough from one eel, so they'll move around to different eels around the reef, and I believe they're called cleaning stations. The eel, of course, gets cleaned from all this, and they're less likely to get infections and parasites, stuff like that. And the wrasse gets kind of a safe place to feed and free food. The fire coral and algae situation is more of a fire coral. They give this algae a place to stay, a place to grow and photosynthesize, and then the coral gets some extra nutrients from the algae just being there. Now, the 6-seeded Diana monkey and red colobus monkey versus the 11-seeded Bornean bat and pitcher plant. These monkeys, it's kind of just like the monkey trifecta earlier. From what I understand, they're getting a little bit of protection and more efficient foraging, more effective foraging by banding together. These are some more your old world, old school monkeys, so keep that in mind. That might not be a bad pick. The Bornean bat and pitcher plant, this is a pretty interesting one. So pitcher plants are pretty much just carnivorous plants where they put off a pheromone or an aroma that attracts insects, and they have a digestive fluid enzyme that sits inside of them, and they're just shaped like a pitcher. And they'll attract insects, and the insects will fall in and get caught in that fluid and then digest, and then they can get some nitrogen and different compounds from digesting those insects. The problem is, they're not super good at it. They can't get all that they need just from catching insects. And so this is where the bat comes in. The bat gets a place to roost, a safe place to roost, and I would also assume that they can maybe catch some insects that are being attracted by that aroma that the pitcher plant's putting out. And what it gives back to the pitcher plant is it poops in it. and that guano gives some of that nitrogen that the pitcher plant needs to sustain itself. So they're both working together on that. Then we have the 3-seeded banded mongoose and warthog versus the 14-seeded burying beetles and phoretic mites. Banded mongoose and warthog situation is pretty much mongooses will just eat the ticks off of warthogs and other parasites. There's some pretty good pictures on the internet of warthogs just laying down, and just tons of mongooses will just jump on them and eat all the ticks and stuff like that. Plus, we know how feisty mongooses are. Ricky Tikki Tavi. That's a big one on me. I think they're going pretty far, just FYI. The burying beetles and phoretic mites. This is another one I was a little unsure of, but they're both carrion feeders. And so these phoretic mites infest on the beetles, but then they also help them break down carcasses that they're trying to decompose and eat. The second to last battle we have in round one of the tag team division is the wattled jacana and capybara versus the fork-tailed drongo and sociable weaver. Capybaras are everybody's best friends. You can look on those Reddit threads. Everybody loves a capybara. And that's what these jacanas are doing. They're picking insects and ectoparasites off of these capybaras. And also what they get out of that is obviously free food, and they're cleaning the capybaras. But if the capybara is going through vegetation and it scares up some bugs, that's just an easy meal for those jacanas as well. The fork-tailed drongo and sociable weaver is a little bit different because these drongos are kind of bullies. They mimic the alarm calls of other birds, and they scare them away by doing these fake alarms, false alarms, and they steal their food when they fly away. Now, where the weaver comes in is they also know that the drongos sometimes give legitimately real alarms, and so they kind of work together. It's like, here's a drongo, he's the big bully, and here's the kid where he's taking all their lunch money and kicking them out of the cafeteria, versus he's only taking a little bit of the weaver's lunch money, and sometimes they get to stay in the cafeteria and hang out with them a little bit. That's kind of what I'm getting from that. And the final battle of round one is the 2-seeded coyote and badger combo versus the 15-seeded ant and aphid combo. Now, this coyote and badger one is really cool to me, where basically in some situations, if they're hunting like a prairie dog or something like that, the coyote can chase it on land, and if it goes into its burrows, that's where the badger comes in. So it's a pretty interesting cross-species hunting party that you don't see a whole lot. And the ant and aphid, this one's funny to me because it's almost like the ants are just aphid farmers. They basically get honeydew that these aphids are producing, and in exchange, they bring the aphids into their piles at night so they're not getting eaten by bigger bugs. And that's all your tag team division round one contestants. Hope your brackets are going well. Like I said, sorry I didn't get my better quality, good video out, but I'm glad I could get something out there for y'all. If you haven't sent in your brackets yet, as long as they were filled out before we started announcing winners, you can go ahead and send those to me, and I will put them in our bracket pool. Winner will get a sticker and a little shout out on social media and a certificate. Maybe a couple other mystery prizes if I can find something else to do. We already have 35 or so people in the bracket pool, so go ahead and jump on in there. And like I said, follow us on our social medias I listed earlier. Subscribe, like, comment, send us precious minerals and jewels and gold and deeds to land unknown. But anyway, thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening to Wildly Opinionated, your source for random wildlife discussion.